another Open Cluster Management community meetings. This meeting will be recorded and will be uploaded on YouTube. So if you disagree that, please disconnect now. Today we have two topics that we want to discuss. First, we want to discuss about some proposal that we might submit. One of them being All Things Open, the other being DEF CON US 2022. And then the other topic is we're lucky to have Patrick Hickey, our in-house security expert, just to give a high-level discussion about our security reporting process and what we can do to enhance it. So let's talk about the call for papers. I mean, the All Things Open proposal submission first. So we submitted a proposal last year. Do we want to submit another proposal this year where we talk a little bit about the plugins or the adjacent community? What do you guys think?
If there's something prepared, I think it could be a good idea as far as expanding the visibility of the community. I know community growth is a priority that's discussed in the general meetings. This
Yeah,
seems a good means to go about it.
I think so as well. Is All Things Open back to in-person at all this year? I don't think so.
They might be, I don't know, but we'll probably schedule just a virtual one.
Okay.
So,
I'm in the Raleigh-Durham area, so I can probably go as need be as long as it doesn't fall in my 1 week of vacation.
okay, I'll keep that in mind then.
And as long as COVID doesn't spike dramatically straight back up. So as I've learned in the past 2 years, don't get my hopes up.
Okay.
I think the March All Things Open was in person. Although they also had virtual as well. So hopefully this is also a mix of both.
So is there a particular topic that we should be discussing? Should we be talking about our plugins, like for example the app or the policy plugins or the managed service account add-ons? Or should we talk? Oh, go ahead.
My 2 cents would be if we're giving an actual presentation, it might be, I think a great way to do it would be to show the simplest way to go from I have no clusters to maybe the usual demo, putting up a bunch of kind clusters, bringing them all in, deploying an app across multiple, moving it between places, making placement changes and seeing it appear, policy enforcement, just kind of do a quick motion through all of that might be a good. I think there's a way we can draft a story where it's a 15 to 20-minute presentation and you get all of that.
Okay, sounds good.
And then that would leave us some time for questions and future work.
Yep, it'll be similar to the demos that we gave earlier. Jang. Oh, go ahead, Jane.
I was wondering if it might be useful also to kind of share some of how OCM links into some of the adjacent communities that are out there to show how there's synergy with other projects.
That might be good. I was also going to suggest by this point in time we may have the Stelostron operator out, which we're toying with the term that I wanted to float here, that the Stelostron is a distribution of, in the same way that OKD is a distribution of Kubernetes and OpenShift is a sibling to Kubernetes. Stelostron is almost a distribution of OCM. We take OCM, we add some more stuff on top of it, we distribute it. So that might be out as well in community operator land.
I also know that you've been doing some work with the SIG. I don't know if we should talk about that at all or whether it's even ready for that discussion.
We can talk about the SIG in here. but I feel like it will hijack our open cluster management focus because that's like it's not exclusive to OCM and it's shared among other people. And there might be a better opportunity for that somewhere else like KubeCon.
Okay.
Qjang, do you have Min Kim, do you have any ideas, suggestions?
I don't actually. I think that's a good idea that we demo about how to easily bootstrap the cluster management part. But have we already done that in the last meeting last year, or we just did the introduction in the last year?
I think we did that last year.
Okay.
And we've been doing that a few times as well in all the other meetings.
Okay,
So,
might not want to do that then. I was thinking the add-ons are the big new thing. Last year's All Things Open, right?
okay.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm not sure what's the best way that we can do. I think integration is a good topic that, for example, we can present how OCM can be integrated with other projects, including things like Argo and Kubevela.
From my personal perspective, I think I'll be more interested in the latest progress between OCM community and the SIG multi-cluster because I didn't attend the SIG multi-cluster meetings for for a long time, and I think the schedule of SIG multi-cluster has been cancelled for like so many times. I don't know whether there is any work going on. So the developers interested in multi-clusters will be more interested in if there is some news about they said there are some new projects that revive the SIG multi-cluster.
Okay.
And as for as for Kubevela, I did build some integration, but I'm not sure if there are more users actually using that integration. I'll be collecting some user voices that I think for the integration between OCM and Kubevela, it might be better if some other users can share their experience in using it. For example, the integration DD, there are some proposals going on in the work API repo. If we can make some more progress in that repo and announce that it's being supported by the OCM community, then it will be, I think there will be more audience. Yeah,
okay.
if for example, if we can land on to the work API, then I can I will try convince the Kubevela guys landing onto it too. Then making it a community standard.
Okay. How do we tie that back into OCM though? Do we try to integrate Work API directly with OCM, or should we sort of demonstrate manifest work and say this is sort of an implementation of the Work API?
Yep. OCM is the implementation of the Work API. So, yeah, we can just clarify that the repo just provides the API, the specification.
Okay. Qzhan, do you agree with this? Because I know if we bring up the kubesig Work API here, it's gonna definitely attract more attentions. But the issue is how should we tie it back to OCM? Which Min Kim suggests we should just mention that OCM has an implementation of the Work API.
Yeah, I think we need some work to adopt the Work API in OCM in the future. I think at least we need some. Maybe we can do it right now. I'm not. I mean, we should. We could have work in OCM to host the Work API, like the manifest work. It's just a two side of APIs, but we can. I think that we can make the work agent to as a detailed implementation of the Work API, but they still support the manifest work at the same time.
I think OCM's manifest work can be a superset of the SIG multi-cluster Work API. So there's some everything working on the SIG Work API is gonna it's also be supported by our manifest work.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, in that case. Okay, in that case. Go ahead.
Sorry. I think our OCM API can be no let me how to put it. The SIG multi-cluster Work API can be working like like a shim over the SIG multi-cluster over our manifest work API.
Yeah.
It's the API converts between the two.
Okay. Okay, in that case, I'll draft the topics around the Work API and how it links to OCM. And if we have actual implementation at that time, that'll be great. If not, I think we can still demo something and talk about the Work API, the simple implementation that we have currently on, versus the full-blown out manifest work implementation. That might be a different spec, but it's inspired by it or something along that line. Okay. So for the remaining half of the meeting, I want to quickly jump to how we can improve our security reporting progress. Because one of the criteria to move up to CNCF incubator, obviously security is one of the major importance points. So I'm gonna let Patrick talk a little. Our in-house security expert, Patrick, who handled multiple CVEs before, to talk a little bit about how we should improve our security reporting progress. So Patrick, sorry to put you on the spot, please.
That's okay. The flattery leading up to it helped. So ultimately, with security reporting, we want to be respectful of the security reporter's intentions and try to foster good faith security reporting. There's certainly situations where communities, organizations will ignore a good faith report, and that's how you end up with a blog post written about a project months after non-responsiveness. So I think the first thing we should establish is a timeline for response so that when someone reaches out, they at least know members of the security team for Open Cluster Management will reach back and acknowledge, yes, we're currently triaging the situation with the understanding that we're a smaller project. I think 7 days could be a reasonable timeline. Having looked through the Kubernetes documents on their security reporting as well, I think including a list of security response members or the security members could be helpful so that we can receive GPG encrypted submissions. Not everyone may be willing to report via plain text just for the sake of their own privacy. We don't necessarily want to exclude that audience. So those are two primary factors. Following that, its formal documentation would likely be done on determining a fixed lead and a timeline for how and when a fix will be made. Of course, all with open communication with the reporter. They should be included at every step of the process to maintain that transparency and foster that good faith engagement with the Open Cluster Management community. This I don't have as clear an idea upon, but there is the ideas within the committee security response tab. So under the security release process link that you have there, they have specifications where the first things done are triaging and assigning a CVSS using a common vulnerability security score. I think that is off the top of my head. Please don't hold me to that. Using CVSS 3.1, essentially to determine the severity.
Is Patrick cut off or just me?
Patrick's back. Although I did just need to run a speed test because my internet's not the most reliable.
Check.
Yep, you're back, Patrick. Please.
Thank you. Yeah, Firefox decided I don't have permissions anymore. Apologies. And so, of course, low and medium severity can be fixed within the next release period, with high and critical severity, as determined by the CVSS scoring, should be released in, say, a 0.7.1, 0.8.1 Z-stream release, because it is important that our security stays up to date. We also want to note that we need to be focused on fixing securities within the Open Cluster Management code base specifically, and not our dependencies necessarily. It is not unlikely that dependencies will have vulnerabilities. We should upgrade to triage those and fix as appropriate, but ultimately we don't want to be doing the fix work for other projects. Those are kind of my initial thoughts on the matter. Does anybody have input, questions, recommendations?
So my first initial look at this document is quite full. And do we need this much information for our security reporting details? And so do we just mention something like, we try to follow the Kubernetes standard, here's what they do, and this is what we're trying to imitate? Or do we, on our own website or on our community doc, we draft our specific steps and the timing requirements, etc.? What do you guys think?
I think I saw on the main page it mentioned that the response was like 3 days or something, so That might be confusing if we reference something. Yeah, 3 working days or something response, and I think Patrick had recommended 7, based on the size of ours. So it might be confusing if we directly reference this. We may want to take pieces of it, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say taking pieces is best. Using Submariner as an example, they say they aspire to follow the Kubernetes security reporting process, but don't lay out any specific differentiation. I think in that aspect, at a minimum, say a response timeline could be helpful, just for the sake of, if the response is nothing more than we're currently triaging the situation, I think that's still helpful as far as maintaining communication.
That's a good idea. And then maybe a reference to if it's depending on the results of the investigation, maybe then we can point to how our patch process works, which we're still trying to figure out, thanks to Min, who mentioned that we should have some sort of a process for patching. So I think we could reference that once we have it.
Yeah, I think that this really depends on our release patch process. So I think we need 2 documents. The one is about security, but that security document need to relate to a patch release process document.
And I think we can probably start by exercising the patch release process for once. A few days ago, I cherry-picked a few commits about multi-arc or ARM64 supports to the release 07 branches. So we can send a patch release to exercise that process. We don't want our first patch release to be a security release, is it?
Yeah, I could certainly agree there.
Yeah, I don't know if this has already been discussed, but it'd be really nice, I think, if we could release like some of the underlying components within ACM at different, within Open Cluster Management at different cadences. So if we have some bug fixes that we want to release within the GRC SIG or the policy SIG, it would be nice to be able to release those earlier. And I don't know if that's something that's been discussed or a possibility.
Honestly, go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, we actually discussed about the different release cadence from different component. I think we just need a document to clarify like which part should have a consistent release cadence and which part could have different release cycle, etc. So yeah.
I wonder if it ends up with us having like a designation for core and then add-ons, or an add-ons conversion independently.
Yeah, I think that might be an option.
Plus, most of it's typically deployed either from the repos or from cluster ADM, so cluster ADM can do a little bit of the lifting to help that. That also helps with CVE response. To Patrick's point earlier, though, if we have a CVE or a security disclosure for, say, just policy or just one of the other components, we can just rev that without having to bump a major version for everything.
Circling back quickly, as just one final thing to mention is disclosure. That's another thing I think we should have a clear timeline defined for. It's specifically denoted within the Kubernetes security release disclosure process. that may be something we need to look at and adjust to our own needs as necessary. But it is something that we should consider as far as publicizing when a security fix is made for those that do use the Open Cluster Management project.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, I think we have at least a lead on how we should tackle this. So the first thing, we need to come up with the release cadence document, and then since we still have a little brief time, maybe we can talk about some of these bullet points. So, Qijian, what are you thinking in terms of the time period for the minor releases and the patch releases? We already talked about how each subcomponents can have their own release cycles, and we just need to document it. But what is generally the time that you think makes sense? And then we can discuss here and come to a consensus.
I I think we need to get more input from everyone. I don't have an answer on that. I think, I mean, for the minor release, like from 07 to 08, previously we decided that it's like more about 3 months for each minor release. So, for example, our 0.7 is on end of March. That means that the 0.8 should be like in end of June or the beginning of July. But that is just my idea. So I actually want to know if there are any other thinking on that.
We have been pretty frequently with the 3 months seems to be our minor release cycle. But I don't think we've done a patch release yet, unless it's for another subcomponent. I forgot if there was one that was released for cluster admin or not. Kim, Juliana, what do you think? Should we stick with the 3 months for minor releases that we've been using for a while now? So I think we should be okay with that. But for the patch releases, what do you think? How frequently do you think the timing should be?
I think Min was suggesting once a month. Is that correct? Before?
Yes, for the patch release. And as for the minor release, interestingly, in Kubernetes, they it's every time they had a minor release, they will announce them on there will be a new KubeCon event. So we can also schedule our minor release based on some event timelines. Because combining the release process and announcements, promotions will be good. As for patch release, I think I was suggesting if we are like aligning all the minor release of the for those core components in OCM to a same version. For example, the placement is now 0030 version, but I think the placement is in the default suite, so it should be it's considered as a core component. So I think we should probably bump the release version of minor release version of placement directly to 0.070 or 0.080 because in another well-known open source projects named Spring, they are also that's how they are dealing with the polyrepo release management process. They had many like subprojects, and their release process, all of their subprojects having the same release version of the core their basic frameworks version. Like if the version of our core components is diverging, then it's going to be confused. Unnecessary confusions will come to our users. But it can be okay for the add-ons to have diverged release process because they are in the optional sets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should do that to bump the release to 0.7 maybe for the placement. Another question about the patch release is how long should we support the patch release? Like, for example, if we already have the minor release, a new minor release, do we need to stop? Should we stop the patch release in the older release branch?
I think it's in Kubernetes it has so many users, so they can't take care of every patch release request. So
Yes.
so they have a managed window, they have a maintained window of like 3 minor release. But in OCM we can start by as publishing patch release on every demands. That's how I do in another subprojects. The Java client of the Kubernetes. Every time there is an issue requesting a patch release, then I would just send a new tag, push a new tag to the repo, and which triggers the patch release process. Yeah, that it will. I think it will work in the starting phase, but there might be some scalability issues if there are more users on board in the future.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other additional comments regarding security, regarding the release cadency? Well, with 3 minutes over, thank you all for the engaging discussion. Hopefully we'll see you all next week in the next community meeting then. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.